Hi, and welcome to Composed Living with Elsa Elbert. I am Elsa, your host. Today, I'm so excited to be talking with Janie Schwartz and Molly Pross of Saint. Saint is a single mom collective. They started it after becoming single parents themselves and realizing that there wasn't really a great system of support for single moms. I was a single mom myself. This connects with me very deeply. I was fortunate enough to do a workshop earlier in this year talking about how to kind of reclaim your space post separation, whether you're staying in your existing home or you've relocated. It's such a complicated and tricky process and a very emotional one. And I was so flattered when you all asked me to speak on that subject. And thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Maybe you guys can introduce yourselves individually and then speak to what Saint is, how you got started, and where you are today with it.
Molly, you want to take the, want me to jump in?
Jump right in.
Jump right in. I'm Janie Schwartz. Thank you again for having us. We love talking about Saint and our mission. Molly and I have known each other since we were 15, so a long time, and have gone in and out of each other's lives sort of in various phases. And we really reconnected quite intimately when we were both going through our divorce. And Molly was sort of ahead of me by 2 years or so. And so when I started going through my separation and experience, I leaned heavily on her for everything, really, for emotional support, for resources, for fun, for a shoulder to cry on, for dating advice. I mean, honestly, everything. And we really sort of reconnected on this topic and rekindled a deep friendship and sort of created this small community of women who were all going through the same thing, not necessarily in the same phase of it, but a shared experience. And we knew that we were onto something, that we kind of needed each other to get through the process. And whether that was laughing, crying, traveling, you name it, sort of, it wasn't off the table. We were open and vulnerable and all the things. And so Molly and I kind of planted this seed, I want to say like 2 years ago. That New York trip was 2 years ago. And we were like, there's something here. And what does that look like? And we sort of ideated and started kind of exploring what this looked like. And a year we kind of planned and experimented and launched softly in January of this year. And we brought in another partner, Zoe, who we both know separately, who was going through her own experience. And we sort of wanted to have a proof of concept out there before we really like brought it out to the public and started talking about it and making it a legitimate business. And it was met with open arms and quite positive feedback for women going through a really hard time. I just want to add, and then Molly, I'll pass it back to you, that it's sort of what we're learning is that it's not just for single moms who are divorced or separated. It really runs the spectrum of women who are exploring the concept of separation and divorce, who are post-divorce and in another relationship or remarried and are still co-parenting. So we're learning a lot about our audience and our demographic, and it's really exciting to sort of see how this has grown over a short period of time. And then I'll just add quickly, I'm 3 years out. I'm still not legally divorced, but my ex and I are very simpatico. We have a really good relationship, which I know is not the norm. We travel with the kids, we communicate. It's not perfect. We still, peaks and valleys. I have 2 kids. I have a daughter who's 13 and a son who's 10. And I'm sort of continue to ride the roller coaster that is single parenthood, single motherhood, of course. Molly.
Well said. Well said. I was like hooked. You're such a great storyteller.
Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I think to add, we really created it out of a personal need. And we're really focused on the support piece. So it's kind of a peer-to-peer support model. We're not therapists ourselves. We're not, facilitators. That isn't our background. We are literally just grassroots, a community of moms coming together to provide support. So we host both online and in-person events, currently in the LA, kind of Southern California area. And we have a signature circle that we host. It's our Saint Circle. It's just really a sharing circle. That's kind of our bread and butter and what we started with. And it's just a really wonderful, casual, safe container for women to join and just meet others and talk about whatever they have on their minds. And then we host in-person circles currently at Riverbank in Los Angeles. And then we pepper in ancillary kind of events around kind of our core areas of focus, which include career and finance, love and sex, family, co-parenting, things like that. So just around topics that obviously resonate with this demographic. And I think for us, it was really also important to focus on shifting the narrative and shaking the stigma of single motherhood. So, that really comes with kind of a negative kind of connotation, I think, historically. And so we're kind of using it as like, an empowering kind of title, but also wanting to kind of redefine what it means to be a single mother in today's day and age. So I think that's what I have to add in terms of Saint. As for myself, I have a 6-year-old son. I completed my separation process over COVID. So it was kind of a long journey, but officially divorced in a new relationship, very positive, healthy, first time in my life kind of relationship. And so it's taken a lot of inner work and discovery to get there. I do not have the most amicable relationship with my son's father, but he is a very involved parent. So I'm super grateful for that. But there's definitely kind of like a roller coaster of kind of like energy and communication where some days it's fine, some days it's not. You kind of have to surrender to the experience, release control. That's something that I'm working on. And just kind of focus on filling your cup and, working on yourself like throughout this process.
I am such a big fan of what you all are creating. I think it's so necessary. I know from my own personal experience, the idea of having a community of people to support you through that process is like fundamental to your survival. I mean, I was also a teen mom. I was 18 when I found out I was pregnant with my daughter. And I was in college. I was living 500 miles away from my family, and I had 0 friends who had kids. So the whole process from pregnancy through to Lillian's dad and I were together until she was about 2. Then separating, it was like, we didn't know what we were doing. We were children and we were living alone at that point. We had even moved farther away. We moved to Seattle. So now we're like, 1,500 miles away from closest family and had no friends around. So the separation process was wild. I also didn't know that I had really bad postpartum depression. And so everything happening all at the same time of like trying to finish college, trying to navigate being a single parent, trying to navigate learning how to co-parent when we barely learned how to like be in a relationship and parent. It was such a difficult time. And then from there, it just got worse. It was like, okay, well, now we're out of college, but we're both working full time. And now he's in another relationship and she has another kid. And, it's all of these dynamics. And without support, it's a nightmare. And, I think as women, we are superheroes when it comes to these things and juggling all of it. But I really wish we didn't have to be. Like, that's not a title that I want in that role, like we shouldn't have to do everything alone because there's no structure of support or community to help us. And
Yeah, I mean, I was going to add, I think as moms, we've found that there's mom groups for everything. There's, wonderful support for women in general. There's support for kind of every other transition that people are going through in their lives. But really, we found there was pretty much nothing for single parents. And this includes single fathers as well, which is a whole other topic. And there should be community for that as well. We're starting with moms, but there really was nothing, and we were alone, and it is like an abyss, and you don't even know where to start. And so, and it was also like kind of eye-opening and shocking that there wasn't anything really out there. So we just kind of like,
yeah, there's
sorry.
so many, like you said, so many, like, I was like, I'm in like Alliance of Moms and Hey Mama and
Yeah.
Female Founders Club, like
Yeah.
all of the things where you're like, I'm supported now in all these other areas.
Yeah. Which is, it's funny because as we sort of go down the rabbit's hole of this, we learn things and we're like, wait, why aren't they addressing that as a single parent? Or why aren't they like things? Society is sort of designed as either a nuclear family of 4 or sort of alternatives that don't address single parenthood, whether at your kid's school or, camps, or it's really hard to navigate. No one ever thinks about the custody schedule or finances, so it's really nuanced. And as we sort of go further down this road, we're like, there's something here where you go into businesses and teach them about single parents, and you go into venues and you teach them about single parents, because also, the divorce rate is shocking, and this is a huge demographic, right? And it's just sort of fascinating, the learning curve on this and our own experience, and then what we hear from our community and the moms and what they're kind of looking for. And ultimately, to Molly's point with the saint circles, is sort of all of that is extra, and what women really just need is a safe place to be vulnerable. Because to your point, Elsa, we're multitaskers. We're so strong. We do everything, and we just do and go. And it's exhausting, and we're kind of sick of being strong. We just need a safe place to be. And whether that's cry or laugh or word vomit, like ultimately that's our goal. So, and some sort of like evolution and growth that comes from all of that, which is a really beautiful part of the pain and sort of devastation that come from being a single mother and divorce and separation and, uncoupling and that whole bag of tricks, if you will.
Yeah. I mean, the power of being in community with women and just sharing is remarkable.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you just to say it out loud to get it out of your physical body and your mind. So that you can heal and move forward. And I think that's so special. That's one of the many wonderful qualities of the women in the world. So we ask everyone what composed living means to them. And I'm so curious how sort of like together, maybe as saint or separately, like if this is something that resonates with you. So for me, like when I started it, it was really with the intention that we would organize our lives in a way that allows us to live our happiest version of our lives. So it really has very little to do with home organization necessarily, other than that as a tool to create like a calm safe space for your family to relax. But beyond that, it's all the other things, navigating co-parenting and, parenting on your own and work and all of those things, just creating that balance so that we can all enjoy life in the way that we want to. I don't know if that's something like as a company that you've kind of thought of, or individually how it resonates with you, or how you would interpret your own version of what composed living means?
Molly, you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really great question from like a company point of view. We did not kind of dive into that, but I think after the fact or through this conversation, maybe we'll arrive at a kind of perspective. But that, I think for me, composed living is really about, especially now, kind of shifting my perspective through gratitude. That's really kind of been my focus in just, you know, again, it goes back to I've always been like, I just have to release control. I have to surrender, but also kind of living a life where I am looking for the positive and I'm able to kind of realign and not kind of go down the rabbit hole of things. I think it's about like staying curious as well. It's like, I'm now at a point and I've done enough therapy where I can like step back and be like, you're doing that thing again. Like, why? Or, it's like showing curiosity and like self-compassion and just really kind of living on my own terms. But I think it comes back to like really shifting that perspective and finding kind of like little things in your life that you're grateful for, that that kind of fill your cup and light you up. That was a lot of things.
Yeah,
That's great.
beautiful. That was very well said. Gorgeous. And I mean, gratitude is huge, huge. And we sort of have to like remind ourselves, like poke ourselves to people, even though we're surrounded by sort of all this wealth. I think composed living for me means coming back to me, like coming back to self, where I was wife and mom for so long. And obviously I'm still a mother and that's sort of my priority, but I lost myself completely in that process for a very long time. And so it's coming back to me and finding a sense of peace and ease, which I didn't even know what that felt like anymore. Like chaos was just so familiar that with my goals, what I was really trying to manifest was peace and ease. And we sold the family home a year ago and I moved into a place by myself for the first time in my life at 41, and learning to sit in it, knowing that it's mine, being alone, embracing the process has been a really beautiful thing. Definitely uncomfortable at times and lonely but even in that, it's been really, really lovely. And so it's almost like I don't know what to do with the peace and ease now that I have it, because my system is like, what are you doing? Like we're fight or flight. And now it's like, oh. And also learning to, give myself grace and being okay in sort of the discomfort, and also simplifying, like learning to simplify, and even like in my home, simplifying and just not what brings me joy, and what doesn't bring me joy, like release and let go. So it's a process. And I think with Saint, and Molly and I will definitely regroup after this as to what that looks like for Saint, but I think it's some sort of women coming back to themselves and shedding this narrative that they've been carrying around, and leaning into sort of acceptance and faith and friendship. So I don't know if that's like a clear answer, but that's what I got.
I love it.
That's what channeled in.
It's such a special opportunity, when you talk about shifting your perspective. If you look at the positives that can come out of a separation, it is this opportunity to reimagine yourself and to be reacquainted with who you are and what your current values and desires are, because I'm sure they're not the same as they were when you initially got married, or entered into a partnership. And I think there can be so much beauty in that. There's a lot of pain and a lot of struggle, but there's also so much potential for joy in the new future. And that's really the cool part. And I think, being a part of something like Saint, it highlights that part too, like you're talking about love and sex and dating and all of these things that are all like, that's what's coming your way. It's so cool. And I just love it. It feels very hopeful in a time that really can also be, it doesn't have to be super dark, but it can be for some people. And that's just so nice. A little light at the end of the tunnel.
Definitely. And I think we also were really intentional in making sure that this community was focused on the person and oneself versus the kids, and organizing play groups. And this is a place to kind of escape, the day to day and be able to come back to self again. Like Janie said, that's resonating with me a lot. So yeah, this is really about your own personal journey, but then also having a lot of women who kind of come out of the storm and have made it to the other side and are kind of like on the greener pasture. And they're like, wow, like
Sure.
and so to be able to see women who are there, who've been through it, gives you a sense of hope, because when you're in it, like, it's a dark place to be, and you just think that you'll never kind of get through that, and you will. And so I think, having a wide range of women in different places and with different experiences is very helpful in that healing journey.
Yeah. And it is a long process, I mean, my daughter is 23 now, but I also am a stepmom to 15 and 13-year-old boys. And they've been a part of my life for the last 10 years. So they were quite small when I met them. And so it's just like, it's so important, I think, to take the time that is given to you in that sort of separation space to become very clear on what you want your life to look and feel like. Because eventually, we're humans, we will complicate it all over again. And without clarity, it's like, it's the same in your home. I'm always like, don't worry about empty space. You'll fill it. I promise you. Like,
yeah,
nature, we see emptiness. We want to put something there. But I had 10 years on my own between leaving Simon. We were never married. And then meeting Chad, my husband now. We've been together for 10 years. And I'm so thankful because I was able to live on my own. I was able to have roommates. I never got to have a roommate. It sounds so funny that was something that I wanted, but my college experience was as a young single parent. So I didn't go to parties. I didn't go, it's like I went to school really early in the morning, and then I worked a full-time job. And then Simon and I would switch, and he would work like through the night. And it was complicated and busy, and we never had time for like silly 20-year-old fun. And so in my mid-20s, I had a girlfriend who just needed a place to live for like 6 months. And I was like, okay, move in with me. It'll be fun. We'll cook together. We'll like have wine at night. We'll watch movies. It was one of my favorite times. We ended up living together for probably like 2 years.
I love that though. But see, again, it comes back to like this craving of some sort of community, of like womanhood, of connection, of,
because when your kids aren't with you, I mean, I was also in grad school at that time. And so this is what you see, I had a moment of peace, and I was like, how can I complicate it? Add some more. But at that time, Lillian was a little bit older, and she was actually really supportive of me going back to school, which was fun. But I got to buy my own condo, just like only mine, in my name, on my own salary, which was such a moment of joy. And even graduating with a master's, with an 11-year-old kid. And at that point, having a great relationship with her father. And there's just so many wonderful things that happen along the way. I don't remember why I got started on this. Maybe just talking, the importance of getting really clear on what it is that you want and being your own person and pursuing your own goals and dreams. Because, now it's like, I love being married. Chad is the person that I wish I had met, no offense to Simon. He's awesome. Such a cool dude. Not the right one for me. His wife is the perfect person for him. And, Chad and I laugh about that all the time, where it's like, if we had met when we were 20, probably we would have both just been like so aloof and not connecting. So we met at the perfect time. But that became complicated. I had a teenager. He had two like tiny kids. He has an ex-wife. So then it's now my relationship with him, my relationship with his kids, their relationship with my kid, my relationship with her, their co-parenting relationship, my co-parenting relationship. Like how many people?
By the way, like right? Like co-parenting and parenting. I'm 41, my mom is in her 70s, and it's still happening. Like it never goes away, whether you're a step parent or a parent. And then the relationship dynamic. I mean,
yeah, it becomes a lot. And in some ways it's complicated and wild. And in other ways, it's really cool. I mean, kids get twice as many people who love them and take care of them and are a part of their support circle, which I think is really awesome. I'm very close with my stepmom. And, Lily and my daughter is very close with all four of her sort of communal parents. But yeah, it gets wild. One of the things I think when you were talking about school and like not understanding modern day families, the kids get 2 tickets to like big events, and I'm like, but they have 4 parents. Like, how are you going to choose? And I get like, yes, it'll be Chad and Michelle, they will go. But also then it's like, but I spent half of my life raising these kids. Like, don't I get to see them graduate from high school?
Yeah.
Well, this makes no sense anymore, because I would say the nuclear family focus is not so much the norm anymore. Like families look and feel all sorts of different ways. And so the 2-ticket thing, I totally understand that. And it's sort of ridiculous and outdated, but that's sort of the system we're working within. And Molly, you can definitely speak.
Yeah, I mean the 2-ticket thing, but also the family photo with the application. In our application process, I, was very clear about our family dynamic, and was there an opportunity to meet other like single moms within the community? And it was like, they were like dumbfounded. Like no one had ever asked them that question before. Like, what are we doing to support single parents? And also, what are we doing to support kids in this family dynamic who may be having behavioral issues, or things are coming up in school, in camp? And are your staff like really armed and able to understand, when this type of dynamic may be affecting their behavior and how that's coming up for them? And it's a constant kind of like area that I'm navigating. And it's been really challenging. And I think at the same time, such an opportunity to, I don't know, maybe one day expand, say, into like a consultancy where it's like we're working with companies, we're working with schools, because again, we've shifted and we've done so much for other communities to be able to be more inclusive. And for some reason, this kind of experience is completely overlooked in every institution that we see.
Even though it's been the norm for decades.
Which decades, like.
And I think it's still sort of this taboo or shame or some sort of negative connotation. And I know when I told people I was separating or getting divorced, the first gut reaction is always like, oh my God, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
And I went to see my functional doctor very early in the process, and she looked at me and she went, congratulations. Like it doesn't have to be this, even if it's not a cohesive divorce, even if it's fraught and there's a lot of tension, it doesn't have to have this sort of negative overlay on top of it, right? That like everyone is projecting onto you, because then you're carrying that too. And then there's shame in talking about it, and I'm just like open about it. And I watch people's reaction and it's hysterical. They like don't know what to do with me. They don't know what box to put me in, because I'm open about it. I'm positive about it. I talk, well about Sean. I talk about dating. And they're like, where do I put you? Like, it doesn't make sense to them because they're used to this sort of like traditional nuclear by the book family. And yeah, I have no problem sort of changing that dynamic for people and talking about the hard things. It's so refreshing for us, I think.
Yeah, I feel like if Evite or Paperless Post are listening, like we need a divorce party invitation.
Yeah, I mean, why should that be it? But that's again, we're so conditioned to thinking divorce equals negative life experience, and I mean, usually if you're coming to that conclusion, it's because you both are agreeing that you're going to leave behind something that is not working with the hope of, creating a happier life moving forward. So it doesn't need to be terrible.
No, and I also people are living a lot longer. Life expectancy is longer. Marriage is longer. Like things are different. It's not the way it was years and years ago. Like marriage looks different. It feels different. And I mean, I think the institution of marriage is very interesting nowadays. And so, what was a 20-year thing is now like a 65-year thing. It's a different dynamic. And so kind of examining that or looking at that and understanding that if you commit to marriage, and obviously when you go into it, you are committed, right? You are choosing to spend your life with that person. No one goes into a marriage thinking, well, I'm going to get divorced. At least I don't think there is a population that is, but it's being able to like look at it realistically, like what is a marriage, what is it made up of, and then you have children, right? And then there's that dynamic on top of it. So I don't know, I think there's a dialogue around it, a modern dialogue that needs to be had. It's kind of amazing that people go into it so cavalier. I mean, I was young and just thought, okay, I'm ready. Let's do this. Let's get married and have kids and do all the things and check all the boxes. And now sort of 17 years later, it looks very different to me. Again, we grow and evolve as people. And I think you are able to do that as partners, but I think it's very, very hard. You have to have a lot of open communication and transparency and be able to talk about crap that people don't want to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the concept of maintaining any relationship over the entirety of your life is so complex. It blows my mind. Even like Chad and I have only been together for 10 years. So it's like if I'm only 42, we could be married for another 50 years. That's so long. I hope that that's the case. And I hope that they're all wonderful, joy-filled years. But, it's like you have your closest girlfriend who you've known for 20 years. And it's like, how many times do they just bug the crap out of you, And you're supposed to live with this person and see them every day. And like, it's a lot. It's a big expectation. And if two people don't go into that with, the enormity of that decision in mind and how much work it will take and honest communication, Chad knows I need to be alone. If I don't have alone time every day, I am like not a whole and happy person. And he would come home before I started Compose Living. I worked in downtown and I would be sitting in my car in the driveway. He's like,
we
what
talk about all the time. The car is our bubble.
Like, she's in the house with the kids. I don't want to go in. He's like, why? I'm like, she's going to want to talk. She's going to ask me how my day was. She's going to like tell me what the kids did. And I'm not ready. Like, I just talk to people all day. What do you want from me?
Yeah.
leave me alone, let me be in my car, like listen to the radio. And so now he's used to it, and we have buffered in so much alone time, mostly for me. I don't think he needs as much alone time as I do. But it works because otherwise I'm like snappy. I don't feel centered and grounded. And I love that he supports that. And then there's also time. I don't know. Did you watch Sex and the City? I'm sure everyone has seen this show.
I haven't seen the new season yet.
Oh, I haven't. No, I mean like old school, the OG.
Oh, yeah, of
show.
course. We grew up with that. Yeah.
And when she moves in with Aiden, and she's like, just get like, you're always asking me questions, and like, just let me come home and be alone. And he bends her like a curtain so she can have some alone time. And then like 2 seconds later, she's like, what are you doing? That is 100% me. Like, everybody leave me alone. And then 5 seconds goes by. I'm like, so can I come with you when you go golfing?
Yeah.
Just opportunity for space, I guess, is what I really need.
Yeah. It's very interesting, not to make this dating focus, but dating again in your 40s, late 30s, 40s, where you're like, you have so much more life experience and wisdom, but also, and Janie can kind of probably chime in on this. Like, I wish I had spent more time alone in between relationships. It's like, it's one of those things when you're in it, you're like, again, you're trying to fill the void. But then when you're away from it, you're like, God, like, I really like could have used more time in that space, or, it really like the self-discovery that takes place alone is a time that like you don't get back. Like, you can date a million people, and that's like, you can look back and regret, like, God, like, why did I do that? But you'll never regret the time that you used, like, dating yourself and being with yourself and learning about yourself. And so it's like, it's such a, like, again, the positive side of going through this journey is like trying to like shift that perspective again, right? And like, what are you doing with this time? And how do you kind of like make it a positive, as positive an experience as you can?
I love that perspective so much. I mean, I really think it is such a valuable time. And it doesn't need to be all like spa weekends, it's like, again, getting to the root of like, who am I as a person now? I'm not a 20-year-old. I'm in my 40s. I have kids. My life experience is different. What are my values? Where do I want to spend my time? You mentioned the word simplification earlier. Such a good time to really streamline every aspect of your life, because you have the opportunity and you've sort of shed a relationship. There's also the healing that needs to come with that. Any life change, whether we perceive it as good or bad, it's still like a physical stress, and an emotional stress that we need to process and heal from. But absolutely, it's like, what a great opportunity to reevaluate your wants and desires and then set the rest of your life up that way.
Yeah. And I find, because to Molly's point, I'm single now, and for a very long time, being alone was very uncomfortable. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't be idle. I could not be idle because I didn't want to feel my feelings. I just would like schedule and go and do all things. And I mean, personally, I've been working on it in therapy for a long time because I really wanted to learn to be okay with me and sit in it. And we were talking about this at our last reflection circle. You need to feel the feelings. There's no moving forward. There's no getting through it without really sitting in and feeling the feelings and processing. It doesn't mean you have to wallow in them for weeks or months, but you do have to sit in them. You have to feel them. And it's not necessarily a fun thing. It's can bring up a lot of stuff, but you got to muck through it to get to the other side. the more I was able to embrace being by myself, which has been a process. And even my therapist, we joke, I was like, okay, I'm going to stay at home tonight, eat a bowl of oatmeal and a glass of red wine. Like I'm going to pull my time on.
Every woman's dream, oatmeal and wine.
Yeah.
It's oatmeal and a glass of wine.
So weird.
And training myself to do that, to not plan something so that I'm at home by myself and I'm okay. Learning to be okay, knowing I'm okay, feeling the feelings and knowing that like this too shall pass. But when you're in it, it's so hard. You really do feel so bogged down by the heaviness of it all. But the learning to kind of come back to you and dating yourself and the time of self-discovery is so, so valuable. And only then are you really ready to like meet that other person or show up dating. I mean, I remember dating and like not even being present. Like I was like watching from above because it was just like, say yes, you know?
I think that's where a lot of people end up in basically the same marriage all over again, or the same relationship all over again, because you haven't healed, you haven't done the learning to know who you are now and what you truly want. And you go back to what's familiar, which, you know, most likely is not going to work.
Exactly.
Yeah, there was one of the questions that I was looking at was, how are you creating a life that you love, right? And from just that comment, it's like really just like, I think for me is like living with integrity and truth, and confident in who I am and my values. It's like I got to meet myself for the first time after kind of like going through that journey. It was like a dark night of the soul moment. And it's like, I look back at myself and I'm like, I spent like close to 40 years not knowing who I was, what I stood for, what my belief system was, like, unprocessed trauma. And so being on this side of the journey, which is a lifelong journey, right? There's no like end to this process as human beings, right? But really kind of like, living with like true like honesty in, who I am, what I want. And I think that is like, at least, tying it back to this discussion, your comment just kind of threw me into that kind of reflection, but that came up for me.
What is there? So my word of the year is joy, because I've spent 42 years being too busy to feel present in the moment, and now I'm determined. So do both of you is there like a word or a feeling that you are really focused on at this particular moment in your lives? Like something you're just, for me, joy is important, like I said, because I feel like I get so busy that I watch my life through like as though it's a movie, I'm not in it. And even when there is so much to be grateful for around and so many moments of pure joy, I'm already like future tripping about what's coming next. And so I'm trying to just be really focused on enjoying life in the present moment.
I like that. That's great. I mean, that's something I think we both, Molly and I both strive for, and Zoe too. I mean, I think it's a combination. I was manifesting peace and ease for so long, and not that it's consistently peaceful and easy. And your point, joy has sort of been marinating, but also levity and fun. We get so serious all the time, and we are doing and planning and working and mothering and doing all the things that we get to play and have fun and find the levity. And so that's sort of what comes next for me, or what I'm kind of, is moving around in my head. And it's hard, but it's even if it's just moments of like being carefree or laughing until you cry. Like, when was the last time you laughed until you cried?
Yeah,
It's
I've been
it's
doing
so,
a lot of that this year and it feels great.
yeah. So like more of that.
I really got into bed the other night and I was like still cracking myself up. And Chad's like, you're losing it. Like, I don't know
You're like,
what's going on with you. I was like, I'm hilarious. Don't you find me hilarious? It's like, yeah, you're
like,
something.
well, I find you something.
Yeah, I like the simplicity of joy, especially because, you know, the last 6 months I've been going through some personal things and there's been some like really challenging moments. And when you're down, it's like, God, you feel like, will you ever be up again? And then when you're up, it makes you feel so grateful to be able to be in that and to be able to look back and say, like, God, I can enjoy being up because I know what it's like to be down, right?
Mhm.
And so I think I'm so much more grateful for those times and being really present in those moments because it doesn't last. It's all kind of cyclical. So I think for me, just, you know, surrender really has been the word for me. You know, again, I think I just have inherently always been like, I gotta control this, I gotta control this, and everything feels just so like rigid and hard, and I gotta fit this like, you know, circle into a square hole, and I'm gonna jam it in there, whatever the saying is. And you know, really just like finding peace and calm and just being understanding that the universe is going to kind of do its thing and just be open to receiving and just being in the moment and not trying to like live my life like this, like lower my cortisol levels a little bit.
Ooh, yes. I
More
wish
ashwagandha.
let's all collectively lower the cortisol levels would be
Yeah.
a real dream.
We'd
That's
all
a
be
nice
healthier.
word, surrender. It's so difficult to go through life trying to force it.
Mhm,
And it rarely works that that's how we get what we're after.
mhm,
So I love that that's what you're working on. I think that's such a beautiful thing to aspire to. I'm definitely guilty of that myself when I'm like, I'm a very determined person. And when I have
mhm,
an idea in my head, it's like, that's it. Nothing's going to stop me. And sometimes it's the easiest thing in the world to accomplish what I want. And that feels great. Everybody wants
mhm,
that. Like you're just so in the zone and like everything is flowing. And then there are times where you're met with so many struggles and I have to take a step back and be like, I think that this might not be the right path for me. Sometimes struggle is just there and you just have to go through it and that is what it is. But most often, if I can kind of step back and look at it, then it's like, am I just trying to force something that's not my path?
Mm,
Not at this moment, you know? I mean, like one of my core beliefs, I guess, is that the universe will take care of us and that we are shown our path forward. And it's not supposed to be a path of struggle. So, you know, sometimes it is unavoidable. And then other times we are putting those struggles in front of ourselves when they don't need to be there.
mhm,
that was beautifully said. And I think in my head, because I've worked on control for a very, very long time, and have had to, hand it over to the universe. In my head, I literally visualize letting go one finger at a time because
Hmm.
sometimes the whole hand just feels like too much. So it's like peeling one finger at a time. And it's a practice that like you have to keep coming back to because we are so used to, especially as like strong women, we are used to managing and directing and corralling and doing all the things. And in moments where you're able to let go, it's actually like quite freeing and beautiful. But we just want to resist. We want to
Mhm.
resist. And it gets in our way. We get in our own way. So that thing of like one finger at a time kind
I
of
love
helps.
that visual. But it's hard to let go. We're taught our whole lives to like hold everything together. And then you're also supposed to be this like free, magical, like feminine ideal. It's like, what? I can't both grab everything with all of my might and let it go.
Whole other conversation that actually we've been masculine and feminine in women that are strong women that basically like make up, our demographic and our members and us, is finding that balance, because I don't even think we have found, I don't think we're anywhere near it. I think we're also in our masculine.
Yeah.
Finding and has been very, very challenging. And so I think, Molly, you can add to this. I think we're interested in kind of learning more about that. Like, how do we, as these, resilient, strong women, tap into our softness and our feminine? That's definitely a relevant conversation that we're having and want to continue to have.
I would love more information and guidance in this area. I think this is something that was probably the biggest struggle in our marriage for the first 5 or 6 years, because Chad's a very supportive husband and he wants to take care of me. He also wants to live in his masculine energy. But I live almost entirely in my masculine energy out of necessity. If you are alone, like I was my own handy person. I was the furniture builder. I was the grocery shopper, the house cleaner, the primary breadwinner, all of the things. I was everything. And when you are everything, it's very easy to lose the feminine side of you, or the feminine energy side of you. And in our marriage, it was like, I'm going to take care of this thing. And then, that it's like, if I'm doing everything, what's he doing? Like, what's his contribution here? And so you have two people solely focused on like, we're going to be in this part of our energy. And then, yeah, it didn't go well. I can tell you that. And we had to have a lot of really open conversations. Like, that's what I talked to my therapist about, where it was like, she's the one who pointed it out. And she's like, do you both really want to just be in your masculine energy? Like, maybe there's an opportunity for you to trust and be vulnerable and not feel like you have to be the one holding the reins on everything, because you are no longer that person. I think that's ultimately what it was, is like, I didn't let go of being a single independent person, even though I was no longer that. And it's tricky. It's still tricky sometimes, especially when it comes to like DIY stuff. He wants to do it, and I'm like, but I could do it better.
Yeah. I mean, we're doing a whole workshop soon on kind of rewriting your narrative. And I think so many of us are focused on what our story is, and this is our story. And kind of like being able to overcome your story in favor of like embracing the present, embracing the new as an opportunity to kind of rewrite that story and rewrite that narrative, and focusing on like what you can control and letting go of what you can't. And I think so many of us, we've lived half our lives. We're pretty like dead set in our ways, and what our kind of like our story is, right? So that's also kind of where I feel like I'm focusing my efforts. It's like you aren't like what's happened to you in your life, right? It's like, I was single for so long and I had to do all of these things, and it's like, that's who I am. There's definitely some like shedding and letting go of the story, I guess. I don't have a better way of saying that, but
That's so cool. This is a workshop you already have upcoming?
yes.
Yeah.
Well,
We just locked down the date yesterday. And so we actually just planned all the programming through the end of the year, which is site and Instagram, which Molly, if you want to share, we can. But yes, we're doing an in-person workshop in September at Riverbank with an amazing published author and writer, focused on rewriting our narrative and what that looks like, fleshing out details and logistics, but very excited to work with her. Her name is Kim O'Hara. And she's also a Saint supporter and has come to our events and is very witty and funny and has her own hysterical stories. But, fellow single mom, and has been through it all, and she, she's going to lead this workshop, and it's going to be really sort of fun and interactive, and we'll dive a little deeper as to like what it looks like what is our current, and
Yeah.
What are we carrying around with that, and whether we write it out or verbalize it, or it should be a good one. So we're excited about that. But there's also a ton of other programming that's both themed, whether it's Molly, can you jump in and kind of tell me what we have on the calendar outside of that?
Well, I don't have it in front of me, but it's yeah, we're doing kind of like, there's an art therapy opportunity. There is kind of focusing again on dating and kind of relationship with self and relationship with others, navigating co-parenting around the holidays as that comes up. So lots of things like that. And then we also have like kind of community events. We're doing kind of like just a casual like beach hang this month. So not everything is just like heavy. There's also kind of like a social element to it. Like happy hours, or let's go do a sound bath, or let's go on a hike. So we're still, again, in the early stages, but, collecting feedback and figuring out like, what people want, in this community, and what becomes like core offerings. And so we're excited to kind of expand that for the rest of this year and going into next year.
That's so cool. I love everything that you both and Zoe are creating. I think it's so special and it's so needed. And I can't wait to watch how you grow and all the women and single moms that you serve on this journey. It's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very
so
exciting.
you can find us at thesaintcollective.com, and we're also on Instagram at Saint_single mom collective. And I love the name Saint also. We didn't get into like why we called it Saint. It's kind of Janie's kind of vision that just was like perfect. If you want to just jump in before we wrap up.
It's very simple. We were brainstorming like all sorts of names, and I think it just like popped in my head. Well, what about Saint? And the idea behind it is like, listen, all mothers are saints, but single moms are true saints. It's beautiful and hard and all the things. And so it's very simple. It's just that a single mom is a saint, and yeah, that's it. And we're truly believe in this. We're so excited. We're introduced to the most amazing people, and get to hear their stories and, support them. And actually right after we get off this, we're jumping into a virtual circle, and it's beautiful. Every time we like doubt something or question something, something else comes along and confirms exactly what we're doing. And so Molly and I will like jump off after and be like, can you believe it? Or can you this experience? And oh my God. And we hold a lot of space for these women. It just confirms what we're doing. So yeah,
you're on the right path.
We're on the right path. Yes. And thank you again for all of this. Is amazing. We love sort of telling the story.
Yeah, it's a cool story. I love how you came together. And like I said, I think it's such a necessary and wonderful thing that you all are building. I'm happy to be a tiny part of it. And however we can support you, we're happy to.
Well, thank you.